Ever feel like you're talking too much in sales and not closing enough deals? Alex Hormozi breaks it down to just 3 steps to close any deal. No fluff, no wasted words, just a proven method to seal the deal every time. Whether you're selling supplements, signing clients, or negotiating complex business contracts, this approach works.
What's going on, everyone? I want to make a quick video for you guys about the only 3 things to say when closing or selling. And the reason this came up was recently I was coaching our sales team on just going over game tape footage, which is like, hey, let's watch a sale from yesterday. What was done well, what was great, what was bad, what could have been improved, etc. And one of the habits that some of our team gets in, because our sales team is really knowledgeable. We call them business consultants because they really are. They really are business consultants. You know what I mean?
The future of sales is deep expertise, not smooth talking. True consultative selling requires genuine business understanding, transforming salespeople from pitch makers to problem solvers.
And that's why sometimes it's harder to find good salespeople, because they have to have a really high level of understanding. If you're going to, the higher the level of the business that you're going to be selling, the higher level of expertise the person talking to them must have. If they have no context, that's why low-level transactional sales, like if you're doing B2C, supplement sales over the phone, you really don't need to have an exquisitely, knowledgeable rep. It's more about a very transactional process that's going to be very highly scripted, minimal variability, right? Whereas if you're talking about a complex business deal, right, then you need to have a very good understanding of their business, where there's potential opportunities, etc., right? And so sometimes it can be difficult because you may want to switch, and this is especially true when it's if you're the owner of the business, or you're integrally involved in just a couple of salespeople, you may get into the mode of trying to teach, which is one of the biggest A, mistakes, but B,
the entrepreneurial trap: believing knowledge transfer equals sales. Telling isn't selling, guiding is.
One of the biggest hard things to not do, there's some good words, as a salesperson, right? Because if you're trying to close a deal, you want to educate the person, but the reality is they're not going to listen to you until they buy. And so there's no actual point in, quote, teaching, but you do want to coach. And that's something that I was talking about with my team yesterday, is the difference between teaching and coaching. And so fundamentally, there's only 3 types of statements that should come out of your mouth when you are selling. Number 1, and most likely to be coming out, is questions.
Sales isn't about talking, it's about listening. Questions are the scalpel that surgically uncovers a prospect's true needs and beliefs.
All right. So if you don't know what types of questions, for us, I prefer question-based frameworks for more complex sales. And the reason for that is these are the types of questions that we would need to know the answer to in order to work with someone. It's also the only way that you can get someone to change their beliefs about something. Because ultimately the person, especially the more complex, the higher level the sale, the more the person has to come to the conclusion on their own that they should work with you, and less feel forced or suggested.
Psychological judo. You're not pushing, you're guiding. The prospect believes they've arrived at the conclusion independently, making the sale feel like their own decision.
Hopefully that makes sense. And so we should ask leading questions that lead them to the conclusion that they should work with you and you can solve their problems. The second type of thing is a restatement, which means after they say something, you say it back to them, which means that you understand and you are listening. Mirroring
as a sales superpower. Showing you genuinely listen builds trust faster than any rehearsed pitch ever could.
All right, so it's so what I'm hearing is, this is the primary issue that you've been trying to solve, this is what you've done so far, and this is why it hasn't worked. Does that sound about right? So that would be an example of a restatement. Notice, none of these things are declarative statements of fact. I'm not teaching them anything. All right, which is the same reason that people get in trouble when they do presentations to try and pitch. They try and teach. But the thing is person has to have their beliefs broken in order to take action. And you're not providing value in a real way, because the reality is they're not going to execute on anything you teach them. They will only execute if they have their beliefs broken and believe you can help them, and then that they can trust what you are saying. This was so hard for me to learn, because in the very beginning when I started Gym Lunch, I just wanted to go in and get on the phone and Jim's like, no, your pricing is all wrong. You got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And they were just take lots of notes and then end up getting off the call, not buying, and then be like, well, I don't even know who this guy is. I'm just going to ignore it. And so I didn't actually help them. I thought I was helping them, but I was not actually helping them. And I actually heard this from Taki Moore, a good friend of mine. He said, everyone gets benefits from breaking beliefs. Only 10% of people get benefits from tactics.
A mic drop moment of sales philosophy. Transformation trumps information. Change mindsets, not just minds.
And so you actually are providing more value on the call by questioning their beliefs, because you're actually servicing 100% of the people providing value, compared to trying to give tactical advice that only 1 out of 10 people may or may not use. And likely the people who will use it are not buying from you. So either way, you're not benefiting your business, and you're also not benefiting theirs. That was a huge thing that I had to break with my own beliefs. And so then you might be wondering, well, if I'm only asking questions and restating things, how do I close the deal? Great question. Glad you asked. All right. And so what I like are short stories. And so the reason we do this is that, so we'd ask a question, ask a series of questions. Hey, why are you here? What are you struggling with? Where are you at right now? Where are you trying to go? What have you tried so far? How's that working for you? Why is this important? Does it matter, like within the bigger context of your life and what you're trying to do? Okay, great. This is what I'm hearing. I think this is why you haven't been successful. Would you agree with that? Does that make sense? Fantastic. Do you want to hear how our program works?
Authenticity is the ultimate sales hack. No script, no technique can replace genuine human connection and empathy.
Right. So at that point, you'd enter, quote, the pitch, right? Which is where you're going to explain how the services work. This is where most guys and gals will just blab, right? They'll just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and try and teach about how they have this secret system, and really, I think Russell Brunson calls it technobabble. It's like you talk about your periodization, or you talk about your plan, or you talk about your programs, or talk about the softwares, or whatever, right? And the reality is, they don't care. And so all we have to do, realistically, is tell a story that illustrates what they're going to experience as a result.
Humans are wired for stories. A well-crafted narrative bypasses logical resistance and speaks directly to emotion and possibility.
All right, and so if I were trying to sell, I'll just use gym launch as a simple example. So if I'm like, listen, fundamentally, until you learn how to market your business, you're never going to be free. And earlier, you said that the goal, when we asked for context, was that you want to be free. You want this business to be able to run on its own. Does that sound about right? Yes. Okay, cool. Well, then do you see a world in which you're going to be able to outsource the most important part of your business, which is acquisition, lead generation, lead nurture, and sales? Do you feel like there's a world where you can just offload that responsibility and then somehow have a reliable business? Because what if that business goes out of business, which is likely, happens all the time? Then what? Right, you're never actually going to be free until you learn this, which means you have to confront this either today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now, but you're going to have to do it. Does that sound fair to you? Does that make sense? Right? And so here, what I'm doing is I'm telling a story to break a belief. I'm not saying, let me show you how we're going to teach you how to market. Instead, I'm saying, we have to at least come to an agreement that you need to learn this skill. Does that sound fair? This is where we are coaching based on beliefs. We are not explaining or tacticalizing or technobabbling about our program, because fundamentally it does not matter. They don't care, nor will they listen. They're not even paying it. Whenever you have a monotone, you can see it in gong recordings. If you don't record this, you can see talk time. You can see where engagement goes down. And invariably, it's when a salesman gets to this part of the pitch and then they talk for 5 minutes straight. No one cares. I'm sure that if you've ever been sold something, you feel like the person isn't listening to you, right? And so what I can say is the best way to sell is to have the person feel like you understand them. And the best way for someone to feel understood is for you to actually give a shit. If you actually give a shit, you will know what questions to ask in what order, because those are the questions that you would naturally ask. The reason scripts were even invented is to mimic or structure a conversation between somebody who cares and someone that they can help. That is what a sale is we're breaking their beliefs, we're coaching them to the conclusion that they have not been able to make up to this point, which is that they need to work with us in order to solve their problem. And we should be okay with the fact that I would like to provide value to this person so that I can break their beliefs around this, whether they work with me or not. This is still the type of solution that they're going to need. And if you can approach it like that, you stop having your ego tied up in your closing percentages and your numbers, and instead you start helping people on the phone, and by extension, you will sell more deals. You do not pitch the program until you believe the person will say yes. Lawyers do not ask questions they do not already know the answers to. No guy, most guys, don't propose to someone without already know the person's going to say yes.
Strategic selling is about certainty, not hope. If you're not 80 to 90% sure of a yes, you haven't done enough groundwork.
The take rate on proposals is very high, right? Let's be real. Most, girls say yes to a proposal. Most, right? I'm not saying all, but most do. And sales should be the same way. If you feel like you don't think you're going to close this person, do not pitch them. Continue to stay in this circle where you are asking questions and reinstating and clarifying until you can eventually find that piece, that thread that was unexposed that you need to pull to then get them to say that, aha, that's the issue, right? And so from this, the three things that you should be using when you are closing is you should be asking questions, you should be restating what they said, and then once you've exhausted these pieces where it becomes obvious that you need to move on the sale, only at that point they'll say, well, how do I work with you? How does the program work? They should be asking you. Or you can at the very least say, would you like to know how the program works? I think it might be a good fit for you. At that point, they can give you permission to say yes.
This isn't a sales training. It's a masterclass in human psychology, connection, and genuine problem solving. Hormozi doesn't just teach sales, he teaches a philosophy of understanding and serving.